Welcome to Your Career Podcast with Jane Jackson. This podcast is dedicated to your career success with career tips and interviews with fascinating professionals who have made amazing career changes. My very special guest today is Justin Nelson, the founder and CEO of Sphere Rocket VA, an industry-leading virtual workforce company. Since 2020, Sphere Rocket has placed over 4,000 virtual assistants, serving over 1,500 growing small businesses. Justin began in real estate at the age of 17, running marketing, lead generation, and inside sales campaigns. After getting licensed, he quickly became a top producing agent, generating $320,000 in gross commissions his first year using social media and marketing growth hacks. In 2019, Justin started coaching new and veteran agents to create leverage in their businesses through social media, hyper-growth strategies, and eventually virtual assistants. The need for a service to help small business owners hire and effectively use virtual workers quickly became apparent, and Sphere Rocket was born. Justin is an in-demand speaker and coach, teaching the principles of leverage, passionately creating freedom for tens of thousands of people every year. Now, let's welcome Justin to the show. Hello, Justin. How are you?
Hello. Thank you for having me.
And all the way from Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm here in Sydney. So it's morning for me, evening for you. And so thank you so much for your time. I'm really excited to find out more about Sphere Rocket. But before we do, let's find out how you made your career changes, because you've had some really interesting changes yourself and some interesting stories to tell. So just to kick us off, tell me, what were your early career aspirations when you were a little boy?
I would say when I was a little boy, obviously a lot of people would consider me still on the young side, but I'm 26 now. But when I was probably about 12, 13 years old, sports was my entire life. So I thought professional sports was my early career aspirations. And then, while I'd still consider myself a little boy around 14, 15, started to get into a lot of like gifted programs during high school and middle school, and kind of shifted more towards like an engineering STEM type aspect of science and things like that. So that was my main aspirations between sports and maybe making a career out of that and engineering.
Yeah, okay. And so with engineering, how did things progress there?
Yeah, so I actually, and maybe we'll touch on this later, but when I was about 15, my dad went from a 30 to 40-year corporate career, also in the U.S. military, ended up making a transition over into the entrepreneur world of real estate. But at that time, while I was 15, I was helping him with that business, but I never really saw it because it was kind of a new thing to be an entrepreneur and go that career path. So, I was getting to witness that, but I would say at the time when I was 15 to 18, I was, really gearing up for college. I was, just good enough, just slightly, not above average, just good enough to be able to play college football. And so, I started to gear up towards my career by finding colleges that allowed me to play football and have engineering. And so I would say that's kind of how it got started, was a love for sports and engineering kind of got combined when I had the opportunity with a scholarship to play college football.
How fantastic. And it takes a lot of dedication to actually be considered for a scholarship with football. And so now in your bio, it says that you started in real estate around about the age of 17. So you had these plans to go to uni, to play college football, to get into engineering. And then how did the real estate thing come? Was it because of your father?
Yeah, so I had always watched my father have a really successful career in the corporate world and in the military. And, we always lived like a pretty middle income life of, middle of the road. Everything was really good, always provided for. And so, becoming an engineer was a lot of like, for that me, security, right? The security of the paycheck and, things like that. But whenever he went from corporate world into real estate, he did really well from consistency and applying that hard work that he had learned in the corporate world. And I started to see a rise in income and opportunities and, things that came from that, right? Him being able to give more back to the community, him being able to have a little bit more free time with us as the business grew. So, I would say, yeah, at 15, I got to watch him and kind of help him. But by 17, I was really working 10, 15, 20 hours a week in the business. And so kind of got conflicted, at that point of like, oh, I really love what he's doing here, but I'm 17, right? Everybody at my, school saying for university, like, they're like, you can't just go be an entrepreneur. You can't go down that career path. You have to go down this one first and then switch over if it doesn't work out. So it was a really interesting, kind of starting, in some of those formidable years.
Yeah, because when you're pulled in one direction and then the norm is to do something different, it makes you really question, especially if everyone's saying, hey, we're all going to be, going to this uni and that uni, and this is what you do, and we're all doing it. Why are you thinking of something different? So what did you decide at that point?
Yeah, so for me, it was all about no regrets, which I think is a big thing I live by when making any decision in life, and kind of has always followed me in my corporate career and non-corporate career. So football was a big thing. I didn't want to one day say, I wish I would have tried playing college football. So I went for a year and, played it. I had a good time. However, I started to make, in full transparency, more money in my first year at university from my dad's business that I was still working on virtually than I would have made had I actually graduated and come out of the university with a degree. So, I would say that's kind of how I did it. Is I kind of, I knew in the back of my mind I'd probably end up in the entrepreneurship journey, but I still was willing to give something a shot for myself more than, kind of what the status, normal was.
Yeah, it's in your bio, it says that in your first year in real estate, you generated in gross commissions over $320,000. That's phenomenal. I mean, no wonder there was that pull, because you're thinking, what's going to happen when I graduate and I get my degree and I start off in engineering. And although with engineering, it's one of the professions where there's the greatest salary raise, in the past year. So that's going well. But then obviously the real estate was a huge pull, and probably supporting your father also in his business and making it a family concern must have been another strong pull for you.
It was. And, I was very fortunate that over time I had a lot of like business mentors and mentors in my life that, it really taught me the concept. And this might be something that relates to your audience, something you teach, like you're never too young or too old to make a change and make a career change or make a switch. And so, I knew that even though I went to university for a year, and then I decided to, stop it and end up going into the entrepreneurship, I knew that if for some reason something didn't work out, I knew that I could always go back to university, right? Like I had friends that were in university that were 50 years old, 60 years old, 70 years old. So I've really, I feel like I was very lucky at a young age to not get like trapped into this thinking of like, if I go to university and I go here, I can't change my mind to do something else. Or if I skip it, I can't go back. And so I think I was really blessed to have people kind of mentor me to go, you can do whatever you want at any age.
And did you get that support within the university faculty as well when you spoke to the career advisors?
Yeah, I did. Obviously, they're very biased to you staying in the university.
Yes.
At the time, I was actually probably ranked number one in the class, as a freshman. And so they were very supportive of like, yes, go, if that's what you think's best, go do it. But you're also like number one ranked in the entire like class of our school. So like, be very careful, like don't take this decision lightly. So yeah, I think they were obviously kind of biased to staying at the university, but I was very lucky to have someone that was also, they had a piece of their life in the entrepreneur world as well. And they understood that draw.
Yeah, I'm wondering also, with the strong pull of the sports side of things, how did that feel leaving the football?
Yeah, so I think it would have been a lot harder if I actually loved, playing college football. But college football for me was more of a job. Like I said, for me to go play college football, I wasn't just like a standout player that was, highly recruited. It was more, so when I got there, it was a lot harder than I was expecting. It was, I ended up breaking my back during my high school career. Yeah, playing football. So, that injury kind of reappeared. So I also went to a university, and I don't know what it kind of translates to in Celsius, but in Fahrenheit, it was roughly like -5 at our practices, like in Fahrenheit, which is really crazy. And so snow and ice and, so it wasn't my favorite place to play the sport. If I was in somewhere else, probably would have loved it. So, I'm very blessed that actually it wasn't too much of a hard decision to give that up.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is I went, even though I'm in Sydney now and I grew up in Hong Kong, I went to University of Minnesota.
Okay.
Talk about cold
Oh,
wind chill factor. Oh my
so
goodness.
I was in South Dakota, so not far from you.
No, very, very cold. And
Very
you know,
cold.
when
Yeah.
I landed in Minnesota, it's actually in November when I first got
Yeah.
there. And I'd never seen snow before.
Yeah.
And I thought, what have I done? Why am I there? So yes, I understand not wanting to be out,
Yep.
out in the field when it's, you know, you got a wind chill factor,
Hmm.
snowy. Okay. So you moved away, you decided, okay, I'm going to leave uni because there is
Yep.
something else that actually I know I can be successful doing. So you got full-time into real estate. And
Hmm.
then there's something that happened. You're very good at marketing. Yes.
Hmm.
And so
Yes.
tell me the story. So you went into real estate, you're doing real estate sales, and this is residential sales.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you're ticking along really well. And then how did the marketing side of things start to capture your attention?
Yeah, so in the United States, we have to be 18 to have a real estate license, and so from the time I was working for my dad, from 15 to 18, I was really focused on the marketing side for them because that's really the only thing I could do, not holding a license. And so when I was 15 to 18, all the marketing I was doing was for other agents. So it was for my dad, it was for the people on his team, and so when the marketing would happen, sometimes you get a really good lead and you send it to them, and maybe the agent on his team was a little lazy, right? Or they weren't fast to respond, or they didn't really give it good service. And so I had a few years of like doing marketing and watching these good leads go to people, and they closed a lot of them, really good business. But then I also saw they let some slip, or they didn't put as much work ethic in and things like that. So when I was 18, 19, I got to do it for myself when I was licensed, I feel like I already kind of had a little bit of a head start of I knew how to market, and then I had already watched people's failures, which really taught me, kind of the best practices to move forward. So, it kind of let me kind of get a little bit of a head start compared to what some people might have had.
Mm-hmm. And so now that was up until the age of 18. 18, you got licensed. You're now
Yep.
26. So between
Yep.
18 and 26, those 8 years, a lot has happened. Can
It
you
has.
talk me through those changes?
Yeah, so really from 18 to 21, I was a traditional real estate agent. I was helping my dad grow his team. I ended up getting some ownership of the team. I started opening up locations in different states and different parts of the state. And at 19 and 20, I was, like you had mentioned, the 360,000 in GCI. That was above average for even just any real estate agent, let alone someone that age. And so I kind of got a little bit of, like, I humbly try and say it, like fandom or like stardom within the company I was at, which was Keller Williams. They're an international real estate brokerage. And, I had a lot of opportunities to go and speak. And that ended up being one of my passions. So when I was 21, I ended up speaking on 150 different stages across about 40 different states out of the 50 here. And I really found a passion for speaking. And so as I was doing that, I kind of pulled away from the traditional real estate sales and got more into like training real estate agents, because they wanted to hear my story, hear how I did it. And so I kind of became like a little bit of a motivational inspiration speaker while still teaching some tactics to do. And at that time, I was speaking on so many stages and had so many eyes on me. I had developed a coaching program, a program that people could purchase, and, no different than a lot of the worlds we live in probably together. And so people were able to purchase this program. And so I did that till about 23. So about 2 full years living on the road. Did that till 23. And then, I was I didn't want to be on the road anymore, about 150 days. I wanted to wind back a little bit. So one of the number one requests I had gotten while I was running the coaching company is people knew that I had been using virtual assistants for many years, probably since I was 18, using virtual assistants based in the Philippines to help support a lot of our administrative tasks and different things like that. And so people started asking, well, hey, how are you doing that? What are you doing? I'm like, how'd you find them? And so I had already found a source in the Philippines that I worked with and kind of, owned and operated. And so I started to let my friends kind of at the age of 23, my friends were like, hey, can you get me a virtual assistant? Can you find me someone awesome? And so I started to use my contacts to find them awesome, employees. And people started then to pay me $1,000 and then $2,000 and then $5,000 and $10,000. And, then I started to get corporations coming to me going, how are you doing this? And so it kind of kicked a business off in February of 2020. So About 18 to 23 was some type of form of real estate selling and coaching. And then from 23 to 26, I have been, my entire time has been dedicated to Sphere Rocket virtual assistants. It very humbly, COVID helped us. I know COVID probably hurt a lot of businesses and slowed them down, but we were very fortunate that obviously a virtual assistant company, people needing virtual help, was very well accepted in a COVID environment. So over 3 years, we went from about 0 to 5,000 full-time virtual assistants, and then I have about a staff of about 100 that works directly for me. So that pretty much takes up all of my time, now just managing, that operation.
Yeah. It's so interesting how a career can morph from one thing to another, and then an opportunity presents itself. And I think your ability to be able to get on stage and speak and inspire others as well, that helps you to get the message out. Yes,
it does. It does. Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say that's like my whole lead generation method. Like a lot of people run Facebook ads, or they do network marketing, or they BNIs, or whatever it may look like. That was my lead generation method for Sphere Rocket. Is I went spoke on stage, inspired, and as people heard how I had grown my business, virtual assistants were a big part of it. So that's how the whole company was honestly grown.
Yeah, it makes so much sense, because it's one person speaking to so many. And if you're speaking on stage and it happens also to be broadcast, you could be reaching millions.
Absolutely.
And then what I'm interested in is the name of your business, Sphere Rocket. How did you come upon that?
Yeah, so actually we used to have a name. We were called Social Agent, which was kind of a real estate name. It was kind of about being social and agents. And honestly, being young and naive, I didn't know that you couldn't take another company's name. Like I didn't I didn't mean to. I didn't even know they existed, but we had a trademark issue. So at the time, one of my employees in the Philippines was like, hey, like we do a lot of work with people's sphere in the entrepreneur world, like what we call your sphere, like your closest 100 friends or people. And then the Rocket was kind of like, our company was growing so fast. We would always say like, rocket's moving fast, guys, hold on. And so one of my employees is like, hey, like we're over here in America, we're in the Philippines, and so what if we had like a rocket taking off from the United States to the Philippines? And so when you look at our logo, the logos of rocket wrapping the earth, because our clients are in Australia, they're in Canada, they're in Europe, like a lot of different places use the Philippines for outsourced work. And so it was kind of looking back, it was a blessing, because I don't think that Social Agent would have been a large scale name. Like I think we probably would have had to have done a rebrand anyways. And so it was able to take a really kind of bad situation, because the company did not like us, that we accidentally stomped on, because we ended up growing a way bigger company. So they were very offended, and, we were very cordial. We knew we had made a mistake on it. And so that's how the name, came around.
Yeah. When you run your own business, you do have to be so careful with regard to trademarks. And so that was a valuable lesson learned. But it turned into something better. Yes.
It did.
The Sphere Rocket, it sounds global. And
it's unique.
I'm thinking the sphere of influence. And really, because you're connecting people all around the globe, it makes such sense. And, I had a small problem with a side business that I'd set up years ago too, and I was going to be sued by a global company because I had named my business Pearls Apporte, and so there's that global luxury brand that is also and I'd done all this research, and there were many other companies with a similar name, it's Apporte, Yoga Apporte. So I thought Pearls Apporte, pearls, it's like ready to wear, pearls to wear. But then I needed to change the name, and my lawyer had told me, Jane, don't fight it, you're too small, they're too big, and come up with another name. And I ended up coming up with A Passion for Pearls, which better. So it's like a blessing in disguise in a way.
It is.
And for you with Sphere Rocket, that sounds great. And so now you've got over 5,000 virtual assistants that you're working with, 100 direct employees who work for you. What sort of services does Sphere Rocket provide to your customers?
Yeah, so we really service, it's really interesting. We I don't know how to say it the best way, but we can pretty much fill any position. So, obviously, I come from an entrepreneurial world, so we work with a lot of business owners, right? Business owners in all aspects. They can be a plumbing company, an electricity company. They could be a real estate agent. They could be someone that just sells coaching programs. They could be speakers. So we obviously work with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of smaller entrepreneurs that might have an organization of 1 to 5 people total. And then we also work for big corporations, right? We work for big companies that they might need a call center for support, right? So they've grown so large, they need 20 people to answer phones for them to, service their support. And so really, when you look at any business, if there is a position where the work can be done virtually, so financials, marketing, social media, customer support, we can really staff, any position, that goes along with those. About the only thing we don't really touch is development. The Philippines isn't really great for website development or some of the deeper, coding and things like that. There's better places in the world, in my opinion, for great talent for that. So that's really the only thing we don't touch.
So really, if you were starting a business, or you had a small, medium enterprise, or even a large business, and you wanted help when it came to administration, operations, follow-up, maybe research,
yep, absolutely,
administrative support, digital marketing, creation, or whatever, basically, people can come to Sphere Rocket for all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I always like to say, when people are like, what is Sphere Rocket? If you were to try and simplify it for the average everyday person, is we're a recruitment agency. You tell us what you need, we go and find it, because we have such a large influence due to our positive reputation.
And what are the challenges that you find working virtually across the world?
Yeah, so obviously reputation's everything, when, and this goes for any country, when there's a business owner in a more first world country owning a business in a more third world country, and this happens across all countries, right? Some are considered farther ahead than others. You obviously have, past history of certain people taking advantage of certain people, right? Underpaying or, not being ethical. And so you would think that maybe that it'd be hard to run a business in those countries with the past that some people have presented, but it's actually the opposite. When you're just a good human and you have good ethics and you treat people right, you actually will skyrocket faster, in community reputation and country reputation. And, we're a relatively small company. And whenever I go into the Philippines now, they treat me like government, like when we can go through, when we land, it's like they're giving you escort in. And it's because, right now we're providing so many people with a high paying job, with great opportunity. I mean, if you think about it, we're injecting 5,000 people's worth of income. So, if 1,000 clients are in Australia for us, 1,000 are in Canada, 1,000 are in the US, you have all this money flowing from across the world into their economy. And so it's really interesting. I mean, I would think it's a challenge, but I'll be honest with you, it's really about hiring the right people. I have a CEO over there. Her name is Shireen, and she's just a godsend. She's amazing, down to earth. And her main mission in life is to get her, fellow countrymen and women as many high paying jobs as possible. So, I'd say that's made it a lot easier too.
Yeah, that's a really good work ethic and business ethic as well, because there have been so many virtual assistant businesses popping up everywhere, and some have not been as ethically inclined because they're trying to hustle so much. But it sounds like you've got a really good corporate mission and values that you adhere to, and that must be what grows your business so well. Yeah,
it is. And one of the really cool things is it's like a lot of times with virtual assistant companies, what happens is you go to them, you would go to a VA company and say, I need, a marketing person to work in our company. And what the VA company would do is they would hire the VA, and then the VA would work for that company. And then you just kind of get to contract that person. So that VA is never really working for the business owner. And so a lot of times there can be like what we call corporate red tape, or there could be, a lot of politics because that VA is not really working for you, or we're a little bit different. Once we find that person for you, we put them on your team, and then we step out of influence of saying what has to happen. And that allows, our team members to feel like they're a part of a family team, right? And that they don't have to come back to Sphere Rocket to ask permission to do something. Like they really get to be sewn into the community that they're working for.
Oh, I really like that. It sounds like you're building a really, really good family style business.
Hmm.
And so, some final words for us. What would be your top tips, top 3 tips, shall we say, for people who are thinking of making a career change? And it's either a career change into something different, like your
Hmm.
father did from the
Yeah.
military to corporate and then entrepreneurship,
Hmm.
and for yourself as well, from really working in corporate into entrepreneurship. If someone's thinking about a change, what are the things they need to consider first?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing I would consider is that almost everything in careers is what I call it flows back and forth. Like if you leave something, if you were really good at your job and your career or whatever you were doing and you built up connections and people like and trust you, you can always leave something and you can almost 9 times out of 10 find your way back into the same career if what you left for wasn't all that you dreamed it to be, right? Or there was a situation. So I think a lot of times people think when they leave a corporate career, maybe just for a different corporate career or a different change, that they don't think that they can ever go back, right? Or that it would be shameful to go back. And so I think that's one big thing I've learned is go take a chance. Maybe you like this thing 100 times better, and it's going to change your entire world, the way you operate, your energy, the way you can show up for your family. And I think the other thing too is like sometimes like you could be making a lot of money. Sometimes you can live a way better life if you switch careers. It gives you more time freedom, even if it's a little bit less income. So I think that's something else too, is a lot of times people are jumping the ladder or staying in a career they don't like. A great example here in the US, you get lawyers all the time that stay in it for the money, but they're miserable at their job. And so I think those are kind of some things that you can always go back to where you're from, where you're at most likely. And also, it's not all about the money.
Yeah. And also, when you think about it, and we were chatting before we actually started
Mm-hmm.
recording this podcast, that you were inspired really by your father, who'd made his career changes
Mm-hmm.
from military to corporate and then into entrepreneurship. And you noticed that palpable change, and that, hey, dad's around more now that
Mm-hmm.
he's running his own business. And then suddenly you were actually a little bit better off, and then
Mm-hmm.
more and more better off. And so that would have been very interesting as a teenager to see how your family relationship and situation changed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it was really interesting because it was like I thought I was going to go down this one career path. I was dead set on it. And then to see like a complete 180 of it was just really inspiring, and it really was like, wow, this is a lot different. I could see how this could benefit people. But I also, I think a lot of times people, when they coach or they train, they're like, if you're in corporate, like you're only successful if you can make it over to entrepreneurship and you can do it this way. And I actually see the opposite. I think a lot of times people make a jump because they're listening to someone just because that's what they're saying. Like everybody's different. Like some of my best friends that started in my company with me from day one and that were here for years, they found out they were making more money than anybody could imagine, but they figured out real fast that they actually needed a 9 to 5 job. And that made them happier because they could go home and leave their work at work versus being an entrepreneur, which can be in your head all the time and never stop. So
yeah, it really depends on what motivates you. And
mm-hmm.
you've now created this perfect balance. And kudos to your father for inspiring
Mm-hmm.
you. And at the young age of 26, you're running such a successful business. Now, where can we find you?
Yeah, so obviously my name's Justin Nelson. So I'm on any social media platform you can think of, any of them. And then obviously if anybody ever wants to learn a little bit more about virtual assistants, what's really interesting of where you're located is you guys are in the same time zone, as the Philippines, or a lot closer. You're a lot closer than we are here, which is actually a really unique place. But to find out more about virtual assistants, you can just go to hireleverage.com, which is HIRE leverage.com. So hireleverage.com. And then, of course, one of the blessings you talked about earlier is when we changed our name to Sphere Rocket. No one really competes with us in that SEO space. Like if you search Sphere Rocket in Google, you're gonna find everything about us. There's no other companies called Sphere Rocket or really anything else called Sphere Rocket. So it's really not too hard to find us.
Yeah. So we'll find Sphere Rocket easily if we Google.
Yeah. Yep.
The website is higher leverage.com. And I'll have
Yeah.
the links in my show notes as well.
Awesome.
So you can hop over to janejacksoncoach.com/podcast, and you'll be able to click through and, for the listeners, find Justin there. So thank you so much for your time. It's been really interesting talking to you, and may Sphere Rocket continue to the stars. Oh, that was a bit corny, wasn't it?
I love it. I love it. That's what it's about.
Well, off the top of my head, there we go. Thank you so much, Justin. It's been
Absolutely.
an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.